Right. So yes, mentioned, I'm Eveline, and I'm a user experience designer for TomTom. There are a couple of colleagues over there, but you'll find out later today. So I think when most of you think about TomTom, you think about this. And even though that's still our biggest source of income and a very important part of TomTom, we're actually also this at the moment. And we started getting into the sports GPS market actually a couple of years ago already. We started out together with Nike and launched our product with Nike in 2011. And it went very well. People seemed to like the product. So we decided to do our very own products without Nike. And we launched those in 2013. And besides having a runner product, we also brought to market a multi-sports product, which you can, besides for running, use for cycling and swimming as well. And March this year, we added the cardio products to the range. And those have an integrated optical heart rate monitor. And I'll be explaining a bit more about that product in a minute, because that's actually the product that we collected the data with for this event. And lastly, just about 2 months ago, we launched a golf product as well, which is not going to be used for tomorrow, but just to show that we're expanding our sports range a bit more. So why this focus on cardio and on heart rate monitoring? Well, first of all, heart rate is a really important measure to see how your body is reacting to exercise. So seeing your heart rate might help you to see whether you can still push it a bit more or whether you need to slow down a bit. And it can also really help you to train effectively. So what people might not know is that there are 5 different zones you can train in, and the boundaries of each zone are going to be different for different users. But they all have different, purposes, so to say. So the 5 zones are, from top to bottom, are easy, fat burn, endure, speed, and sprint. And if you want to improve your endurance, then you might want to train mostly in that 3rd zone. But if you want to burn fat, actually you need to go much lower than you think. So you train in the 2nd zone. So it really helps to reach your goals and train in a certain zone. And lastly, what's also really important and a really interesting measure is your heart rate recovery. So actually when you finish an exercise, your heart rate should drop. And the faster it drops and goes back to normal, the fitter you are. So this heart rate recovery is actually a really good way to see whether you're improving over time. So unfortunately, it's not something that's in the data that we're going to provide you with tomorrow. But it's just interesting to think about maybe for future. We do show it on the watch, but it's not. It's not in the data. But it's an interesting measure. And the innovative part of this product is that we are actually measuring it a bit different from what most products did up until we launched this product. So the traditional straps or the traditional products, you all need to wear a separate strap, which I don't know if you have any experience with that, but it's really uncomfortable to wear. It's not so nice. It usually needs to be wet, so you might end up standing outside in the cold, licking your heart rate monitor, putting it back on. So very uncomfortable. So what we actually do with this watch is we measure it straight from your wrist. And we do that in a different way than the heart rate strap does it. So the heart rate strap measures electrical activity of the heart. And this one uses LEDs on the back of the product. Well, I can show you because I'm wearing it. And those LEDs, they shine through screen lights, they shine through your skin, and they measure the blood flow through your capillaries. And it's as reliable as the strap, and it's much nicer to wear, as you can imagine. But that's just one of the sensors and one of the things that is collecting data while you're on the move. So of course we have the GPS sensor, which besides recording the trace will also help in getting more accurate speed, especially if you compare it to pedometers or those kind of products. Well, then optical heart rate monitor is mentioned. Then there are also accelerometers in the product, magnetometer, which can be used as a digital compass, and a pressure sensor, which we use to determine your altitude or your relative altitude. So all of this data is collected when you're moving. And then we allow users to export it to different existing sites, such as Strava, Runkeeper, etc., but also to our own site. And then you can see at least some of that data a bit more understandable and visual. So you can see where you've been, so your GPS trace. On the left you see your different splits or laps, so you can see how consistent you've been throughout your activity. And the bottom part are some graphs where you can then, for example, see how your elevation or speed influenced your heart rate. And you can see some correlations between those. But this, of course, is just one individual user, and it's also just one activity, one run. It would be interesting, of course, to see a bit more trends for that user, how things are changing.
Just a quick question: do you have like an open API for this, or have it set up? Okay.
No, but you can choose different exports. You can also export it to KML, CC, and then use those. So this is so just one user, and this is what we do at the moment. But this is just the beginning, I think, because it would also be really interesting to make a bit more use of the community, and that's also something to think about tonight and tomorrow. So on the right is a heat map of where people are running in London, which is already interesting to see. And well, the parks are kind of obvious, but apparently there's also quite a nice stretch along the canal somewhere. So yeah, you're not alone. There are lots of runners or cyclists out there, and it would be interesting to see how we can make it relevant for individual users. And then, besides looking at that, looking at all the data of all the runners, what if we combine it with other data? And that's also something to think about tomorrow. So the example on the right has nothing to do with running, but I think is a really nice example where you combine your travel time or your preferred travel time and mode of transportation with some criteria for houses to rent or to buy, and you then see these areres that fit those criteria. So just a really nice way of combining different data sources, and probably those are things you're looking at anyway, but here you have it in one place. So what if we combine our running data with crime data, for instance, to find safe places if you're girls running alone at night, or weather information to make sure that you run at the best part of the day, or maybe sunset, sunrise, and time of the day, so you don't run in the dark if you don't want to, or public transport and traffic information to avoid crowded areas, or to decide to run or cycle to work instead of taking the tube. Maybe some sightseeing info or nice green routes or beautiful bits. So these are just some quick thoughts, and there's probably a whole lot more to think about tomorrow, and to see if there is data that's interesting to match with this data we get out of our watches. And lastly, just a couple more things to consider and to think about. Could you maybe in your groups think about bringing in a social or competitive element, and a bit along the same lines? What about gamification? Can we make it more fun? Also what Veronica mentioned, I think it's really good to think about the user you're going to design for, because it's going to be really different for the couch to 5K person that needs a lot more motivation versus someone that already trains 5 times a week and goes long distances, etc. So that's all I wanted to say. And please ask me questions tonight and tomorrow, or any of my colleagues that will be recognized by wearing a watch, hopefully. That's a good way. So that was